Maria Musani, how do you do? Today, we'll be discussing how to attract high-value marrying men and scare away the players who just want to use you and pump and dump you, and why you have been having such a difficult time attracting quality men, especially by following popular culture instead of following the science. So, today we'll be looking at scientific articles to help you dress for success and also strategize for personal success and for intergenerational wealth. Next week, we'll be talking about how to dress for intergenerational wealth and to marry intergenerational wealth. But before we talk in clothing strategies as a couturier, we have to talk about the dating strategies and the science behind dressing and marrying intergenerational wealth. It looks a lot different than going for some broke dusty and marrying for love and all that garbage, where you want to marry for love, but the man just uses you, right? And then he pumps and dumps you, and it hurts. Why do men do that? Why do men push for physical intimacy when then they get it, and then they pump and dump you, and then when they're older, they're complaining, where have all the virgins gone? Virgins? You player, you miniature Tiger Woods, now are looking for a virgin wife? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with these men? So, let's go and find out why men are so crazy and so inconsistent. For most young women, finding a high-value husband is terribly confusing because your mother gives you advice to dress matronly or so on. You think, ew. And you see, in high school, the most popular girl is the young lady who has the least amount of clothes on, and somehow they never end up marrying the high-value man, where the ones who end up marrying the high-value man dress in a way against popular culture and dress matronly, and you're thinking, why on earth? Why is it so confusing? What on earth is going on? And I'm here to help you with the science, to explain the confusion that is human sexuality. The reason why human sexuality is so confusing is humans have two strategies that might get mixed up at the same time. So, what are the two strategies? There is the K strategy for intergenerational wealth, and then there is the poverty strategy, known as R strategy. What is K strategy?
I can't help but notice you coming down the street, smiling so dearly at everyone you meet. And I can't help but notice you throwing me a glance, a wink.
K strategy is the strategy of Kings, Kate Middleton, and Wales the animal. So it is the strategy of legacy. K strategy is also known as legacy strategy. K strategists mate for life. Did you know that? They have few offspring, but they really invest in those offspring. And they're strong competitors in a crowded niche, and think for intergenerations, and they think for equilibrium across generations. This is why legacy strategists are not extreme. Another example of legacy strategy is piano lessons, violin lessons in a couple children, and so that they develop their brain, and when they're older, they get into MIT or Harvard. So the family invests everything into a couple of children. Another example of legacy strategy in the West is why children are called Donald Jr., right, or William IV, and so on, is because very often, after a few generations, it's easier for the son to assume the family name to continue the legacy of the family. Case strategist men marry, and when they marry for legacy. So that is really important. Why do men marry? Men marry for legacy. Remember that. Case strategy is known also as slow life history, as people plan ahead for generations. That differs greatly from our strategy, which is the other sexual selection strategy.
Think about you all the time. You got me loose. My heart was troubled, now I'm fine.
While the Obamas are case strategists, as in legacy strategists, what are our strategists? Our strategists are like rappers, Rihanna, turtles, rabbits, and reptiles. They are live fast and die young and spread the seed as far as possible. Our strategists assume they have very few resources, so it's irrational to try to preserve their resources in a family unit, but rather it benefits them to spread their seed far and wide, spray and pray. Case strategists invest everything into a couple offspring, like having an M82 Barrett sniper rifle, in contrast to our strategists, who are like having a cheap Kalashnikov, spray and pray, and hope maybe something might hit. Where did the terms KNR strategy originate from? So, it originated from, first of all, in 1967, in a book called Island Biogeography by Robert MacArthur and E.O. Wilson, cited by the Princeton University Press. Its first application to humans was cited in the Journal of Social Biology in 1988 by J. Philip Rushton. Do K and R reproductive strategies apply to human differences? Social Biology Journal, 3-4, pages 337 through 340 DOI, and the rest of that source is here. So, where are these terms drawn from? The terms R and K are drawn from the standard ecological algebra of the Verhulst model of population dynamics. The equation is dn over dt equals Rn times 1 n over k. So dn over dt is the rate of the population change, and n is the population. Now, enough nerding over equations. How is that going to help you stop being screwed over by those duck boys with an F and help you marry the man of your dreams? So, those players known as duck boys, because of censorship, duck boys with an F, come in two flavors. So there is the duck boy, who's always quack, 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 quack for the rest of his life, right? That's one you'll want to avoid. He's called the R strategist. Then there is another type of a duck boy, who is like an unripe fruit. And when he's ripe, then he becomes a mature case strategist. So what's wrong with this unripe fruit? Well, immature legacy strategists behave a lot like our strategists because they lack resources and status to be able to raise a family. Not all players are that jerk with tattoos, or that basketball player, or that famous person who, like Leonardo DiCaprio, who'll never settle down no matter how old he gets. Quite a few players come from stable two-parent environments, but they are young, broke Dusties, or young men who are just figuring out their lives and lack the resources to carry a family on one income. So that's why unestablished men do not commit. That's why they tell you don't be Barbara the Builder, because unestablished men are players until they acquire the resources and status to be able to carry a family on one income, and it becomes rational for them to invest in a legacy. Young men don't think about marriage. They think about having fun. They think about spray and pray and spreading their seed when they're younger, because they cannot have enough resources to invest in offspring. That's the reality. And only when they finally establish themselves, that is when they start thinking of a wife. And that's typically at the age of 28, 30. That's why in countries like Yemen, men never have a chance to even date or marry under the age of 30. This is the first time in history Dusties have so many chances. Historically, Jordan Peterson said that. You know, we come from mainly our female ancestors, and half of our male ancestors didn't even have the chance to breed. So that's why young men break your heart, because they're not men yet, they're boys. And until they have a car, apartment, until they feel established that they can carry a family, they're not thinking of marriage at all. That's the reality, and nothing you can do will make the man think of marriage. And many years later, when he feels that he's a man, that he's established and established himself, then he'll marry the first woman that's there that he feels is his type. If you stick with an immature case strategist, let's say a man in his teens or early 20s, you will be treated terribly and raked through the coals, because he'll see you as a discount designer dame. Who on earth would put up with him when he doesn't think he's a man? He thinks he's a boy. If you are interested in him as a boy, then you must be lower quality. So young men will rake you through the coals. That's why you should not bite fruit before it's ripe. Wait for the man to become established and ripe before you date him. Otherwise, they're not going to treat you well. So look at the difference between the courtship of Kate Middleton, who had quite a little bit of heartache, versus Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle went with Prince Harry when he was finally established, did the Invictus Games, and was ready to settle down and leave a legacy. That's why their courtship was brief and happy, and the courtship of Will and Kate took many years, off again, on again, and so on, because Prince William wasn't ready as an immature case strategist to settle with one woman because he felt he hadn't done anything to leave a legacy. So you cannot be Barbara the builder and build with a man who's 20 or so on. You have to wait for a man to establish himself so that he would respect you. You don't have to bag a billionaire or wait until he's 100 and has a lot of money or something like this. But you have to wait until he considers himself established before you accept a date. Because if you accept a date from a boy, he will think that you're low value because you want someone who's not established. So don't date for love. Wait until the boy becomes a man, acquires resources and status, and becomes established enough to respect himself so that he respects you for choosing him. K or legacy strategists do look for a woman with standards they can provide for that will grow their empire, but they don't want a woman who does the same thing and builds with them while they're struggling. They think that woman is lower value, but a woman who helps them once they have a business or once they have the apartment, job, and enough money to raise children, that is when they respect you and will look to marry you. Female K or legacy strategists are loyal, but female strategists, though they exist, they're not loyal, and they also have the poverty mindset, live fast, die young, have a lot of kids, hopefully one of them survives, hopefully one of them is a child of some affluent man who will hopefully take care of his mistress's offspring or something like that. But they also have a spray and pray method, therefore they're not loyal. And past a certain body count, studies show that women tend to go into our strategy and rarely ever look back. That's why men are scared to invest all their money, effort, legacy, children into a woman who's an R strategist. K strategist women are loyal, whereas K strategist men, when they're an immature or an unripe fruit, of course they're not loyal. They just want to spread their seed because they lack the money and resources for it biologically to make sense for them to be loyal and invest. Once the K strategist, usually coming from a two-parent family, has the resources for it to make sense to invest in a woman and children, that is when they marry. So the K strategist man, quite often, he may not want children, but he still wants a woman with whom together they can leave a legacy. So for him to invest in her and throw money in her, K strategists invest a lot of money in women, in their wives. So for him to do that, it's very important to him that she has indicators that she's not an R strategist woman and thus more likely to be loyal. Hence, men have a Madonna hoe complex, sadly. So, if they see signs of you likely to be an R strategist, they will have fun with you, but they won't marry you. And the popular culture, of course, promotes R strategy or poverty strategy. So, if you dress young or if you dress according to the popular culture, men will take it as you are too high of a risk to marry, quite often. So you have to look out for your self-interest. And that is why elite women dress a little more matronly than broke women. The marriage rates of elite women have not changed since the 1950s, but for non-elite women, and especially minority non-elite women, marriage has almost disappeared, with 75% of black children being born out of wedlock. So instead of criticizing elite dress as matronly, perhaps we can look to those who do get married at the end of the day and look to why they get married instead of making fun of them, taking some cues and seeing how we can use that to make it work for us and achieve our goals. Why does our strategy and its product, that awful Dusty, exist? Why? Why do Dusties even exist? Did you know? They serve actually a useful evolutionary purpose. Do you also know where the F word, the F-U-C-K word, came from? No surprise here, Dusties and the F-U-C-K word are correlated, right? The F word, F-U-C-K word, means fornication in consent of the king. That is actually its origin. So during the plague, the king allowed people to fornicate to replenish the population that was decimated by the plague. So the function of Dusties and our strategy is to repopulate after a natural disaster. The humans are a hardy, sturdy species, so in the worst disasters and war, our strategy helps humans from going extinct. But otherwise, if there is no plague that destroys the population until 1/10 of it is left, then our strategy is poverty strategy, and Dusties are the strategists of being absolutely broke for generations. So now, you know why elite women dress classy. Clothing.
I can't help but notice you coming down the street, smiling.
Like or hate, share and subscribe to learn next week how to dress for intergenerational wealth. Ciao!